All right, welcome back to another episode of D-Pod. So today we're going to do something a little bit different, all right? So we've been having a lot of these BTS episodes, but today we're having an AMA episode. I know, a lot of acronyms. So AMA is Ask Me Anything. And in the studio with me to do this, we have my wife, Katerina.
Hi.
She's a lot more enthusiastic than she sounds.
I am.
Welcome to the studio, Kat. How do you feel about the studio that we're in right now?
I'm wondering what's happened to my house.
You came up to the fourth floor, and it used to be this like nice little cozy place where people could like
take meetings
and read the Bible. But now
and now I'm looking at panels and panels of soundproofing equipment, and I have these humongous headphones on me and these mics sticking in my face. What's happened to my house?
Yeah, the acoustic foam. It's a nice aesthetic.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool up here.
Kind of like it. But yeah, anyways, thanks for agreeing to come on. Not that you were resistant. Actually, you were.
I was very excited.
Yeah. What have your thoughts been on the podcast so far? You've listened to the episodes, I'm presuming, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been really pleasantly surprised. I think as we were kind of in the ideation phase of this podcast, I could kind of theoretically see why it would be good. But as the episodes are coming out, I'm feeling really blessed because I'm learning things about the people being interviewed. Like, these are our staff and we know them, but I think there's just parts of their story that I never knew. Mm-hmm. I can see them getting excited as they're kind of telling their story. So I've been really blessed just listening to him like while I'm folding the kids' laundry and stuff. So I like it. It's nice.
And I think people get to see a different side of people because like people are different. Like when you're one-on-one, one of the students mentioned to me like, I've never heard I didn't know that was agape. I've never heard him talk like that before. Because I guess for this particular student, she had never like interacted with agape besides in like large group.
True.
And like agape's always like
leading games and
like he's like
and I'm always telling him to be quiet.
But then he's very different when you talk to him one-on-one. And
agape is a deep guy.
Wow, agape. Wow, you just got some major compliments right there.
Yeah, I like it. I really like the podcast.
So, this is your first time on. This is not a BTS session about your story. I think we'll have to do that.
Called it BTS.
Oh, that was our new grad focus group.
I know.
But maybe you can just tell us a little bit about kind of just your background, like just like basic facts, like call it. What did you study? Mm-hmm. What did you do for work? Like, tell us the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I went to Berkeley, graduated in 2011. I majored in development studies as part of the international area studies. I studied like third world countries. No longer a major, by the way. It was so obscure and small. I did that because I was pre-law. I wanted to go to law school, but senior year, I think I just realized, oh man, finances are tight. So I said, okay, I'm going to work for a year. And if I really want to go to grad school after that, then I'll apply. And then once I started working, I was like, you don't need grad school to make money. So then I just decided I'm not going to go.
So then what did you work in?
So I started out in city planning consulting because I minored in public policy, which I loved. I loved public policy way more than my major. And that helped me get a job in city planning consulting. I did that for about a year and a half. And then I jumped ship to a tech startup where I did manual QA. I did not like it.
So that means like you literally clicked buttons
on a smartphone, or
to
on
test
the computer,
the app out, right?
And I'm trying to break it.
Yeah, you're trying to break it.
And I broke it. And I was logging bugs all day long. So I always knew that was temporary, but I love that period of my life because actually 16 church people worked at Location Labs with me. And that was so fun. It was really fun. We actually affected the culture a lot. Like they asked us, what do you want to do for team outings and stuff? And then, instead of
because they knew like you guys wouldn't want to go party or something.
Yeah, because they would get party boats and none of us would go. And that's like, I don't know, 15% of the company.
Yeah.
So they would ask us, we'd do some other team bonding exercise stuff and food and it was cool. Worked with Emily Huang there from Northwestern, our friends, Kevin and Emily. Yeah, we worked together on the same team. That was really fun. And then I worked at Levi's doing supply planning, and that was thanks to you.
Oh yeah. So that's when you were at Location Labs, we started dating, and then I was like, oh, I feel like you're really like bored of your job, and
which I was.
And I had connections at Levi's because I used to work there, so then I referred you.
But even in undergrad, you always told me I would like IOR, which was your major.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
'Cause
always...
we're basically the same person.
No, we're not. Yeah, we're both INTJs, have very similar backgrounds, like family backgrounds. Yeah, that's true, but we're very different.
Yeah.
But I did take that job at Levi's, and I actually really love supply planning way more than you did, I think, because you jumped ship to Salesforce.
I jumped ship to software engineering.
Yeah, but I loved supply planning, so I did that at Levi's, and then at Annie's Homegrown, which is not Auntie Anne's Pretzels. It's Annie's that does like the mac and cheese, the cheddar bunny crackers.
Like organic.
Yeah, the organic
snacks
for kids. So I worked there doing supply planning, and I really, really loved it. And then, but eventually I think I just felt convicted to, enter full-time ministry. So then I worked at HB afterwards.
Yeah. Nice. You mentioned we have similar families. Maybe tell us about your family of origin a little bit.
Yeah. Mom, dad, and then a sister. I have an older sister who went to Berkeley 2 years ahead of me. And she's kind of a major part of my testimony because I stopped going to church altogether in high school after experiencing like church splits and stuff. And then she changed so much when she started going out to Grace Point Berkeley. Like, she was just so much brighter and happier. And she's like talking about forgiveness. I'm like, who are you? And I was really intrigued. So then when she told me about this church, I was very cynical. I was like, that kind of church doesn't exist. But then, I really wanted it to be true. So I was really happy when I got into Berkeley. I was like, oh my gosh, I can check out her church. And when I came, I think it kind of blew me away. So I always looked up to my sister. We didn't fight very much. Well, we didn't fight at all growing up. I think we were just busy kids. And yeah, but I followed her everywhere, even to Berkeley, even to our church. She's staff at USC doing international ministry now. I'm out here in Chicago, so I think we just miss each other more. We're both moms, so we just keep trading photos of our kids, and we're getting closer and closer as we get older, which is really nice, actually. And then parents are in SoCal. They're doing well. They are very excited because we're about to go visit them for a couple of days. Yeah. December.
Yeah. My random story about you and Lois is that I actually met Lois first when I came to our church. Right. And then, I met her, I forget where, like it was like probably Bible study or something. And then I met you or saw you and I thought you were Lois.
Yeah.
I was like, and I think someone was like, oh, that's Kat. I was like, oh, but
no, that's Lois.
That's Lois. Yeah.
Actually, funny story, at Lois's baptism when she was a junior, I was a freshman. And, you get dunked in the water and you come out and like these candidates are trying to get dressed and like, their hair is wet and stuff. And I ran outside to grab my parents. And then these two older guys at our church, like Ben Park and Henry Chen, they saw me running and they were like, wow, Lois, you got ready so fast and your hair's so dry. I was like, oh, I'm Katerina. And they're like, haha, that's funny. Okay, congrats, Lois. I was like, no, really? So a lot of people at our church confused us.
You guys used to look...
We used to look a lot alike.
I think you still look alike, but
really?
Yeah, I think you used to even more when when we were in college. So
yeah,
it's funny. That's a little sneak preview into... a little bit of behind the staff for Kata, so we'll have to do a fuller episode later. But the main agenda for today is AMA, and I think this is something we're excited about for the podcast. We wanted to just use different episodes as a way to answer questions that people have about Christian life and like how maybe we've experienced things and things like that. And depending on the question, maybe we'll bring in some other people as well. But we asked some of our new grads, because we've been meeting with them for PCL, post-college life, a little course that we have for new grads on Tuesday nights. And this past Tuesday after we finished, we kind of picked their brain for some questions that they would like asked here. And so that's where the first group of questions comes from. And
some good questions.
Yeah, and there were a lot. So I think we just chose a couple each to cover today because we obviously can't cover everything. And so we'll hopefully keep producing these. Okay, so let's just get right into it. So here's the first question. So it's, how has Chicago or the Chicago church been different from what you expected? What were your expectations and worries and hesitations with moving out here? And in what ways has your experience at Chicago church responded to your initial emotions and hesitations? Okay, so kind of a question about what we expected and what we actually experienced out here. So do you want me to take this first?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I think what's different from what I expected is that, I mean, I don't know why I didn't expect this, but I think the closeness that we experience in a church plant out here, like I had heard stories of that, people going on a church plant and you really feel like you're part of a family as you do life together. But I think I've been pleasantly surprised that it's been even better than I was expecting for myself. So I think especially with the staff mentors who've been out here, I think going through like COVID too, I think that made
that's true.
Maybe our experience
We
even
were
more
together
unique.
like 24/7.
Yeah, so because after the initial kind of first couple months where we like didn't see each other at all, we were like, okay, let's become a social bubble, and so then we like really like saw each other a lot, and I think that really fostered close relationships. And but I think the bigger thing is I think the role that we were stepping into, because Kat and I, we were home group leads, so we were leading a group of students and staff in Berkeley before we moved out. But I think being out here and being the top lead of a church is really different, because back in Berkeley we were still under a much larger kind of organization, so to speak, and so a lot of things were already decided for us, like the weekly schedule, like how Sunday service is going to work, like a lot of these parameters were already decided. But when we moved out here, I think one of the adjustments at first was like just having to like, well, first of all, just getting used to the city, but then like what are we doing, like every little decision it felt like had to come through us. Like, so even things for something as like one event that we have, Sunday service, like where are we meeting? Like when are we meeting? Is it going to be at 1 o'clock or 1:30 or 1:45? Like, are we having food or not? Before or after? What kind of food?
Salad?
Are we having disposable plates or like aluminum trays or whatever? Like, so I know it sounds kind of silly now, but then like I think our experience was that because it was our first time doing everything, like we had to almost think through every single decision.
Yeah, like every decision felt really important.
Yeah, and we didn't know how to right size what was an important decision, what are things we could delegate, and then kind of after a while you sort of know like, okay, there's actually not that many options. Like there's like you either do this or you do this. Like, so I think it took some time to figure that out, and so I think that was I felt like I was in constant decision paralysis, basically. Yeah, but I think for me, well, I don't know. Maybe you want to talk about like things that you didn't expect. Was there anything unexpected for you before I talk about like what fears I had and stuff like that?
Well, what's unexpected? I guess like I already knew that being on a church plant would be very different from being in the larger church at Berkeley. Berkeley's where it all started for Grace Point, and so I already knew it'd be hard. But one thing that was not expected was something positive, which is when I came out here, we landed year 2 of Chicago. So there was already a freshman class that these 2015 guys had met and they were, ministering to. And the
2018 sisters.
And the 2018 sisters, exactly, yeah. And so then we came in year 2, and I think I was just so surprised by how warm like the students and the staff already felt with one another. And like our new grads now, like they remember house church in old Kimbark, old uni, like nasty apartments that these guys lived in.
The first set of apartments they lived in. They talk
home,
about that with such like glowing terms.
Yeah, they are so fond of those memories, really. And I think it really speaks to how zealous these guys were as they came out here. No leader, just a bunch of peers. They fought a lot. There's so many stories about them fighting a lot that first year, because everything, like all those decisions you're talking about, they had to make those decisions,
There's the infamous story about how they spent like 4 hours at IKEA choosing a sofa, right?
That's like the first story I heard about them. I was like, oh my goodness, we have our work cut out for us. But when I came, I think what was really obvious was their spiritual zeal. And I think I was just really challenged by them and the groundwork that they kind of laid for this church. And stepping into it, I didn't realize I would feel insecure even though I'm older than them. And I come in, I'm like, wow, like I'm challenged and inspired by you guys, like slightly threatened, but not, like I had to work through that. And that was really good for me. Like spiritually was very good for me. And then I didn't expect to like, I guess, feel like it, like Chicago felt like home pretty fast. We had never been to Chicago before moving out here. We didn't even know where it really was on the map, but yeah, unexpected challenges. I think it's, just figuring out how to do what kind of this podcast is helping us do. Like carry down the stories and ethos and values that we hold dear to our hearts and our church holds dear, how to kind of disseminate that down to the students and things like that. I think that was a challenge that I had heard about, but it was a lot harder, like when I got out here.
Yeah. And then kind of moving on to the aspect of the question, which is sort of what were some of our maybe worries or like hesitations, kind of, and maybe how that resolved. One thought that came to mind for me was, I kind of mentioned it, but this kind of fear of being inadequate, to fulfill the role that, we're called to do out here, to lead the church plant, to build up the church, right? And build up the church is, saving people and discipling people and having them to see that they're to be a part of a church and to be part of God's mission. And like that whole process, like I was like, I mean, it's my first time doing it, like in this role. So I had no idea what I was doing in some ways. And then I had a lot of fears about like not having what it takes with regards to like leading well, making the right call, even preaching, like to be the main communicator of God's word in a local church. Like I feel the burden of that. And I think all of it though, it really caused me to grow spiritually. I remember sweet times from that first year we were out here where we would have prayer meetings on Tuesday nights, I think. And it was at Cox Lounge.
Oh, Cox Lounge.
Yeah, in the basement of Stewart Hall. And yeah, I mean, it was a really, that was a small, cozy prayer meeting just with our staff and a couple students who were coming out. And I just remember those being sweet times of prayer for me. I think a lot of times I wasn't really praying about the things that Kata was prompting us on. Like I was just praying about my own, like the things that I was going through emotionally and realizing that, wait, it's okay that I'm inadequate. Like that's not the point, right? Like, and it's God who calls me to this, right? Like my sufficiency comes from Christ. And if I pursue Christ with all my heart, and even though I may not do it perfectly, like God's going to lead me. So I think that period kind of helped me to understand what it means to trust in the Holy Spirit, to place your faith and just keep taking the next step forward. And and so overall, man, like I've said this before, but I'm just so grateful for how God brought me to the Chicago church. I think it's been huge in my own formation as a disciple and learning to see myself as a Christian minister.
Yeah, so. I totally agree with you because, this question says, like, in what ways has your experience at Chicago church responded to your initial emotions and hesitations? And yeah, I was just like worried and super self-absorbed, to be honest, when I came out here, like, oh, I'm not good enough. And I think I learned the lesson, like, yeah, you're not good enough. Like, that's what I've been wanting you to learn, like you need to depend on God because ministry is so above us. But he still calls us. God still calls us into it. So I think I learned just through the first couple years being out here that like we don't have what it takes. And thus like no individual can really do this. You have to build God's church so that you do it together. And one of the things my spiritual mentors told me as they knew I was having a really hard time out here just with like basic life, having a kid, having 2 kids out here and leading this group, the thing that my mentors told me constantly was it's okay. And whatever you do, go back to the Word of God. If you don't finish everything on your to-do list today for ministry, at least spend time in God's Word. And if you keep doing that day to day, like you will be built up in the right way. And at the beginning, I had a hard time believing them because I was like, but my to-do list and all these people to meet up with and like, we have to set the schedule. And I just felt so anxious, I think. But as I listened to their advice and I really tried to go back to scripture, I think that ended up grounding me in different ways. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned out here is, like God uses ministry to shape people. Even though I'm supposed to be leading, this ministry, I think I've been blessed and shaped more through it. So yeah, like just obeying God, I think like Chicago church has been such a blessing to me. And like, I wouldn't take back any of those hard times because they were hard.
Yeah.
We fought a lot.
Yeah. But it's like, I think every time when I think back on my Christian journey though, like it's always been the hard parts that I've grown through the most. Right. So, And yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about 2 Corinthians chapter 2, as Paul talks about ministry, right? He asks the question, who is sufficient for these things? And I think I asked that question a lot, and I find a lot of comfort from Paul saying that, because Paul's so awesome. But he's like, who is sufficient? And then in the next chapter, right, he says, not that we are sufficient in ourselves to claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency is from God, who has made us sufficient to be ministers of a new covenant.
Amen.
And so, and I think that's what I would want, because I think with our students and with our staff, like, we're always trying to ask them and challenge them to take the next step of faith. Like, hey, why don't you sign up for this? Hey, why don't you be involved in this youth project that we're doing? And okay, like, hey, like last time you tried leading games, this time why don't you try doing some content or whatever? And I think a lot of times what I get from students is like, oh, I feel like I'm not ready to take that step, or I'm not ready to evangelize to my friend, whatever. And so, but my experience has always been that God calls us to do things that we feel slightly not ready for. And when we trust him to do that, like, he makes us sufficient for it. And he gives us the words to speak in that moment. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's something that people can experience. All right, yeah, how about we move on to the next question? Let's see. So the next one here is, what does life outside of explicit ministry look like? What are your hobbies? How do you make time to partake in them? How has your view in relationships with hobbies changed as you have gained more responsibility over time with the church? Yeah, so the questions about hobbies, about like having time outside of ministry. Okay. Well, I guess. Well, one just initial thought. I just need to get it out there before I move on. But I think the way that this is asked, like, what does life outside of explicit ministry look like? I think I just want to address that phrase, explicit ministry, because I think that's not how I view ministry.
Yeah,
I don't view my life as like ministry time versus non-ministry time, because I think like being a minister is such a part of how I see myself, that it's not like my ministry ends when my work day ends. Like, because I guess for us, like, we're full time, so like, I always joke like with the staff, like, oh, like, like, I have unlimited PTO. Like, if we go on a trip with students, is that PTO or is that work? like so I always joke about that, because I don't know, I find it kind of funny, but like, it's like, I think for us, like, our life is ministry, and like, we're just called to ministry everywhere we are, so there's no like time boundary. But then, so beyond the technicality of that, like, I get the spirit of the question, right? Because, okay, so like in times where we're not doing ministry activities, like what do we do, like doing, or how do we handle that? So when I think about like ministry activities, I mean, that encompasses a lot of things, right? So for me, it's everything from sermon prep to like, meeting with Katerina about our church here, or doing work for GP network stuff, counseling people, marriage counseling for our couples, right? So then times that I have free during the week, I think the only regular time really is Sunday night, because Sunday night is something we have. Nights. Yeah, so family nights. Yeah, we have that baked into our schedule
for everybody, like all the stuff.
So it's sort of like our time for our family to be together, and then for each of the couples or like the households to have a meal, do something fun, or like connect over something. Like, so we have that time baked in, and then occasionally, I guess we have some evenings where nothing is scheduled, and then we occasionally have like Saturdays or like parts of Saturdays that are free. And so I think how I try to use those times, well, nowadays basically I try to use that with my kids, because like any time I have, like, if I can like take them to MSI, like my kids love Museum of Science and Industry, so if I can just take them there, do something fun with them, like that's how I like to use it nowadays. Recently, during the Thanksgiving week, the week leading up to that, our family, like, we took a little overnighter trip to Galena.
Yeah, it was our first family trip.
Our first, like, I think we had never done that, because we were always on trips with like, people or
staff students,
or extended family, staff students, stuff like that. So it was actually our first time doing a trip with just us, and that was really, that was fun. So for me, like, one of my hobbies or things I really love doing is photography. I still love that. And so I try to combine that with like photography. So, I love taking pictures, cute pics of my kids, and, changing my phone background with the latest picture, like, I don't know, like, and I love the process of like taking the picture, editing it, and, stuff like that.
You used to do that a lot more.
Yeah.
College. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, I did used to do it. I mean, I used to have my camera all the time, but nowadays, like we're leading events and stuff, so I don't want to like
Yeah.
have my camera and be distracted by that. So, I try to do the hobby thing like with my other life stuff.
Yeah,
I guess
that's true.
that's how I think about it nowadays. How has my hobbies changed over the years? I think the main thing is that I do have less time for quote unquote hobbies. But again, like I think I try to combine my hobbies, or maybe another word to use is like fills, like the things that I enjoy doing. Like I combine that a lot with ministry, because for me, like if I have
trips,
I love
trips.
I love going on trips. I like hiking. I like nature,
yeah.
and I like going in nature and taking pictures. and I really like exploring new cities too. Like I'm a little bit of a homebody, but then I do like going to new places and like just being able to say I've been there and like kind of.
When it was COVID, like we took so many trips.
Yeah,
with the staff.
So that was just me doing the thing I like,
the
and
thing
just
that
bringing everyone else with me.
Yeah, but those are really good times, actually.
Yeah. So I think in some ways I kind of have merged how I do ministry with the fills that I have, and so I think that's a cool technique. And then I think I have adjusted my hobbies too, like to kind of match the situation that I'm in or the people that I'm with. Like an example of that is board games. I didn't really grow up playing board games. I didn't really like board games in college, but then people around me like board games. And then
Agape?
I think, and then it got even more in Chicago because like Agape, and generally our team does like playing board games.
That's true.
So that's something that's actually like I've played a lot more in Chicago than I have ever in my life.
Yeah.
So so I think that's maybe one way in which a hobby has adjusted to kind of my ministry reality. So as you can tell, like a lot of it's just combined. It's not like I have like a separate thing, hobby category. But frankly, I don't think of it as a huge loss. I mean, maybe I would have when I was younger, but now from my perspective now, like I don't see that as a huge loss because I don't get to have like my own unique hobbies. Because for me, I think the most fulfilling thing in my life is ministry. Yeah. Like I firmly believe that that's what God's called me to, and like trying to love people for Jesus and seeing people transform for Jesus, and like for me that's like a high that I can never experience from any hobby.
Yeah. Well, it's also that, I mean, not that you have to be bored to enjoy hobbies or like develop them, but we're just never bored. Like you and I, we just can't get to all the things and people and, we're never bored. And so I think that's maybe why we don't really miss
the hobbies
unless someone asks us like right now.
Yeah.
It's like we don't really think about it, I guess.
That's what I would do if I had time or if I
Mm-hmm.
felt the need to, but I guess I don't feel the need so much anymore.
Yeah.
So
But when we do get time to do it, it is still fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't really have as many hobbies as you. I think I was a lot more boring than you like growing up, but I did.
Her hobbies were cello, newspaper, all work related stuff.
Yeah, like music related stuff.
Yeah.
I played the cello since I was in the 4th grade, so I did like University Symphony in Berkeley for like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. I really enjoyed it, and like
starting what grade?
Huh?
What grade?
4th grade.
Oh, 4th grade.
4th grade, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I probably would have continued playing, even as a post-grad, probably just kind of occasionally. But I don't know, life got busy. And so I miss it sometimes, but I just wasn't willing to pay the extra plane seat ticket for my cello. So I left it at, HB at our Berkeley church. And actually I still see it from time to time. I can recognize my cello, and they bring it out, of this.
Like when there's an orchestra performance.
Yeah, when there's an orchestra performance or like
Berkeley.
a nice video that has like an ensemble. I'm like, oh, that's my cello.
Yeah, that's funny. Still makes its cameo.
Yeah, I know. So I'm glad it's being put to good use, actually. But yeah, there are times I miss it. But like it has shifted in the sense that like cello was such like an individual thing for me to enjoy by myself. And out here, I think we still do a lot of music stuff because I enjoy music and I like putting together musical ensembles. And we have a lot of musical people here, like in our Chicago church. So then, Easter not an orchestra, Easter like choir and things like that. Like that's one of my fills, actually. One of my hobbies. Like we don't do it very often, but like putting together musical stuff, like that's been like a hobby that's kind of shifted, but it's still in the musical world. So I think that's kind of how it's shifted. I don't like think about my poor cello sitting there. Like I never think about that, you know, and people ask me about it. I'm like, well, if I have a chance to go play it again, like that'd be nice. But if I never get to really touch it again, like I'm just happy it's being put to use somehow, you know? So yeah.
That's crazy that you have to buy another seat to bring the cello back.
I mean, you could, you know, just have it shipped, but
it'll get thrown
for
around.
Sure they're going to throw it.
Yeah, and it's a really expensive cello.
Yeah.
That your dad
expensive.
bought for you like when you were young or something.
Yeah, when I was like 6th grade or something like that, yeah.
I can't imagine a 6th grader lugging around the cello. That seems miserable.
Well, I mean, I was really short. I'm kind of little, so people would regularly ask me, do you fit inside your cello case? I'm like, no, I do not. Thank you very much.
Oh, gosh. Okay, how about we take a question that maybe you can answer here. The next one here is, how has ministry and leading changed for you after having kids?
Ooh, yeah.
Are there things you had to readjust or change about how you did ministry? And the answer to that is yes, but I'll let you answer.
My thoughts around this question, I guess I have to kind of preface it by saying, like, I didn't really know this about the church world, but apparently, you know, like a lot of women who do see themselves as ministers of the gospel, like actually they have a hard time kind of still engaging in whatever they were doing for the Lord, like work for the Lord, after they have kids. And I never...
It's almost like an assumption that...
I guess so.
Because people...
Like
it's too hard. Because it's too hard. Like,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, because being a mom is really hard. It's like a full-time job on top of your full-time job. And it's just like a never-ending thing, you know? And that's not how moms see their kids, like you're a never-ending job. But it is kind of all-consuming. It's hard. So then... I didn't really know that that's what happens in the church world a lot, but I've heard stories from other people in different churches. And but for me, like since my undergrad days, like I saw not just women in ministry, which is kind of rare already as it is, but I saw moms in ministry. And when I saw them, I just thought like, wow, those are like superwoman type of people. Like they were born on that island over there and us mere mortals live over here. And like kudos to them, kind of that's what I thought when I first, you know, came to our church. And then as I got older and spent more time at our church and kind of got to see more of like the lives behind these older people, I was like, wait, there's gotta be something else that's making this possible, because it's not just like the superwoman type. It's almost every mom at our church, I saw them engaged in some kind of ministry, whether that's college or something else. And I was like, there's got to be something driving this, because it's if it were left up to the individual, there can't be this high a percentage of women who decide to like be a superwoman like this, you know? And so like, I think there was just a culture that was set kind of early on at our church that maybe it was hard to set it then, because I wasn't there for that. But I now really, really appreciate kind of stepping into that culture where like we have a culture of like watching each other's kids so that moms can still be in ministry and women can still minister to younger women and kind of bring unique perspectives that only women have for each other as Christians, you know? And I saw that kind of unfolding before my eyes as I started becoming more observant about our church. And that's something that I already knew, like, okay, when I have kids in the future, like that's what I can expect. I'm still going to be in ministry and I'm not going to slow down when I have kids. And I heard that in so many stories.
Right.
And I saw it lived out.
You saw it lived out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
all of our leaders.
Yeah. All our leaders, like starting from Pastor Steve and Eunice when we were freshmen, you know, we were in their home.
Yeah, they had two young kids.
Yeah, 2 and 4 or something like that, which is...
There was Eunice, you know, coming on campus.
Yeah,
you know,
driving us around everywhere.
She taught a survival kit
that's right,
our discipleship course, our sophomore year, I think. And
so then I saw that and I was like, wow, that's possible. Like, I've never seen that before. So then I already knew before I had kids, like, that's the kind of life I want to live. But I think when I had kids, it's not like it's easy. I expected it, but it's like, oh, wow, it's still really hard. Like, you're just so sleep deprived
I know.
for the first 4 months or so, you know? Yeah. But so then the way that I did ministry before having kids, I think I was out in Berkeley like almost every single weekday, just meeting up with students at Berkeley. And then once we had kids, once we had Emma, it shifted more to having like the class we were ministering to at the time was class of 2019. It's, Nicholas, Jeanette, Bia. Like we had them over in our home a lot more, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of shifted.
Yeah. Because they were like juniors and seniors by that time. So then some of them had cars too. So they would make that drive over from Berkeley to Alameda. They would come into our like 2-bed, 2-bath apartment. There's like 30 of them. We're like bursting at the seams at our apartment. And I remember just like taking whatever food I had in our fridge and just trying to whip up some kind of soup that'll feed everybody. And we'd eat, we'd hang out. They would play with Emma when she was like an infant. There's all these like hilarious pictures of these grown men, these 20-something-year-olds, and they're like fighting for Emma's attention,
I distinctly have a memory, and I think I have a video of Nicholas. Like Emma's on the ground, like she's like a little infant. She's like, like her like, limbs are just flailing around, and like Nicholas is doing this like he's like making these hand motions. Or something. He's like trying to get her to react. He's like dancing. And maybe Baby Shark was playing in the background.
And I've never seen Nicholas like that before. I was like, wow, what one little girl can do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so we did a lot more of like, hey, come over. Our home is open all night long. You can do homework at our place. Mostly they just kind of played with Emma, I feel like.
Yeah.
But, and then there were times when you and I would go out to Berkeley. Because
a lot of our ministry was still like, we'd drive 30 minutes out to Berkeley, meeting up with students for office hours or something like that. Yeah. And then we'd have to do this like,
yeah, so like one thing that was kind of special about Jeanette and Bia's class is they were very like, they liked to organize themselves. So then they would figure out, okay, Kata says she's free on Wednesday. She's going to be in Berkeley on Wednesday. And then they all lived together. So they'd talk amongst themselves and they'd organize themselves into like 45-minute blocks. And they'd tell me
they did
it. I didn't do it.
Wow,
yeah.
Interesting.
They did it. They would
That's
say,
crazy.
This is the order. It's this person first and then this person. And it's like, to the T 45 minutes, and I'd sit there at Cafe Milano in Berkeley and they would just come one after another and they show up with a list of things they want to talk about in office hours with me because they're like, I know this has to be efficient. Like I didn't tell them to do that, but they all kind of did that like with each other. So then I would meet with 4 girls back to back, just answering a lot of questions they had. I mean, they were seniors by that time, so they had questions about like career or like all their roommate conflicts they would bring to me and ask like, what do I do? Like stuff about dating and marriage. They had a lot of questions. And so like we'd have office hours. I would meet like 4 of them back to back. And then I remember you would drive out with Emma. She was like 2 months old. Like
because I think we were trying to make the most of the evening. So then,
I mean, you
like,
and our INTJs were like very into efficiency.
So you were doing the first half of the night. So I was gonna meet students the second half of the night.
Yeah,
so
it's like 8
so I'd
p.m.
time it like, okay, if you're done at 8, then I would drive out by 8.
Yeah,
and then
we'll do this hand off the baby,
hand out the key and the baby in the car, and then I'd start meeting students, and then you would like. Take Emma and maybe visit another apartment
so then
before going home.
I would go to the other apartment of senior girls in our home group, and I would do stuff that I could only do with an infant on me. Like I'd help them like reorg their furniture because they're like, oh, this living room space doesn't look quite conducive to having younger girls over for dinner and stuff. And so I'd help them, or like I'd have Emma in like a what is it called? Like an ergo baby? Like
little
she's
backpack.
like on me.
Uh-huh.
She's on me, and then I'm helping them cook or clean or whatever in like Bia's apartment. So those are really good times. And I would come home and I would just crash.
I mean, it was good. Like we think back on it now with like fond memories, but it was tiring.
It was tiring. So. I don't remember much else from those ones. Yeah, so it did shift. Like we had to really kind of adjust our schedule, and for me, I was not like a super disciplined person before entering ministry, I think, because I just had to become a more disciplined person. But for me, I think I had to adjust like what I thought I could handle. And every day was kind of an incremental, like, okay, I can say yes to the next girl that I am going to have a conversation with, or the next like thing of like, instead of going home, I'm going to go over to their apartment and just spend some time with them. Like I would just say yes to the very next thing. And then at home, I'd be really tired. But I'm like, I'm going to be tired anyway as a mom of an infant, might as well like love some people and cherish these people. And now like I see them co-laboring with us here in Chicago. I'm like, wow, like that was so worth it, so
something that one of our leaders has said in the past, which I think is fantastic. And I still hold to it is at the end of the day, you're going to be tired anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
So you might as well do a lot
Yeah.
and be tired versus like
Then
do
do
nothing
little,
and be
lazy
tired,
and
because you'll still be equally tired.
Yeah. So I still hold on to that now because now we have 2 kids.
Yeah.
And the second one is a lot more like rambunctious than the first one. So,
but like in the Chicago church, I mean, our situation though with children or childcare is pretty simple.
different.
It's pretty
Yeah,
simple, right? Because like right now, like the only kids that we have, it's all the Leeds kids.
yeah.
Right, and so there's in Chicagoland, there's only 7.
And some church plants have 20 plus.
20, like church plants, like small churches, they have like 20 kids, right? And so, so in some ways, like things are really simple for us. But I think, just even in Chicagoland, we do a lot of like helping each other out. So, like for example, Brandon and Cindy's, a cute little daughter, Neo. Like she goes to the same daycare as Lucas, and and Brandon and Cindy, I think intentionally kind of wanted to keep her with Lucas so that. Not only are they they seeing each other during the day, but kind of we are able to help each other. So for pickups, for example, like we take turns on different days. Like when we have Wednesday Bible studies, Brandon and Cindy pick up the kids for us, and then
on Fridays,
on Fridays,
when
like today,
International has Bible study.
Like,
we'll pick up. Yeah.
So we help each other in that way. And then something that Kata was saying earlier, just about like how a lot of what enables women in our church to do ministry even after they become moms, like it's because of childcare. It's organized childcare, right? And like for me, like I think that's huge. Like I think because when I talk to pastors and pastors' wives about like the fact that the wife is not able to be as involved anymore, a lot of it's around like who's going to watch our kids.
Yeah, it's not because the woman said like I no longer want to do this.
No, it's a lot of them like they were very passionate about ministry and still are, but they just can't find any help. It's a very practical reality. Like I don't know how to do this, but that culture has been passed down to us in a way, like you were saying, like, and like for us, like on Sundays, I don't know if people know this, or like our students know this, but like there's always a staff who's watching our kids for us during service. That's why Kat is able to be there and fully engage with the students and things like that. And I think that's huge, because I think the like Kata being there and kind of being able to see and get to know the students and know the vibe of the group and all, like that's so like, and then we talk about it together, and and she sees things that I don't all the time, right? So like, I mean, if our church were basically just the way that I wanted it, like I don't think people would
be really efficient.
It'd be and like, things would be ugly, and like I don't care about how things look, and it's just very
no tablecloth.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, can we just do a little bit of
So
like I'm not into a lot of decor or anything like that either, but. Yeah,
but I'm thankful for my wife's perspective. And it's not just about decor, right? It's just about like how to even run things, and like always having the woman's perspective in there, I think has been, I mean, I think that's crucial. Like I think it should be that way. So anything else to say about this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really thankful because our staff, like there's so many things behind the scenes that they do that they just don't get recognized for, and maybe I'm stealing some of their glory in heaven right now, but like I think our staff watch our kids like so much more than they have to.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And they like offer themselves up.
Yeah, it's not just Sunday service times or like during Bible study.
It's like when they're here, like maybe like right after work or something, and maybe Kat and I are catching a meeting, and like normally our kids would just have to like, I don't know, just sit around and
I guess at other normal like American homes, like they would just watch TV, right? The kids are babysat by the TV.
Yeah. But instead, Uncle Agape is way more entertaining than the TV.
For sure. He's more animated than anything else you'll see.
And then, of course, all this, and then the sisters especially, I think, I'm so thankful for our sister staff, because they're constantly watching our kids.
Yeah, they like feed the kids. They know exactly how to, parent my kids in a way, even though they're not parents yet. And, for me, I don't feel bad, honestly, because it's going to bless their lives. They know how to be parents better than when I became a parent in some ways, because in church plant life, like you're just with your leaders' kids way more than at a bigger church in some ways. So it's not just the rotation of babysitting where they're getting the reps in. Like I'm very thankful, and yet I don't feel bad because we're family, and I think they see it that way too. So I'm really thankful whenever they express like, oh no, like you don't have to thank me. Like I'm just here. I'm just, like what else am I like? I'm just going to watch your kids. And so I just marvel at the fact that that's the culture we have.
Yeah. All right. I think this is our last question now. So what are ways to love parents and family when you live far from them. That's something that's close to our hearts because both of our families are in Southern California. So, we both moved to NorCal, so we were a little bit far from them, and now in Chicago, we're really far from them. And for, various logistical reasons, like we're not able to see them that often. So, okay. Well, I'll start off and maybe Kai, you can just chime in whenever you want. But I think for me, one basic thing I started early on was just timely words of appreciation. So that comes to mind. And what I mean by that is like expressing gratitude at major events, like birthdays, anniversaries, or even using things like Christmas and Thanksgiving as times. Maybe that's not something you used to do in your family, but sort of as a way to send greetings or kind of as an excuse to express things that I don't normally express. And then usually I think we try to send, some sort of gift, flowers. I know we sometimes DoorDash a meal, like at the restaurant that they really like Kata's dad really likes Rubio's. Yeah. And so there's a particular menu, like he took a picture of the receipt because he likes it so much. So he said,
if you ever get me a gift again, this is the dish I would like you to get for me again. He
took a picture of the receipt.
Sent it to me. I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, we're like, oh yeah, happily. Yeah. So yeah, just kind of over time we've discovered what they enjoy and what they like. I think giving thoughtful gifts, I think that depends on the family. Like, for example, my family just likes cash. Like, I try to buy sentimental gifts and they're like, what is this? What is this? Like,
Yeah, the first couple of years, it was rough because we were like, oh, that doesn't work. Yeah. Oh, that's not.
Yeah. But Kata's family is like super sentimental. And so I think.
Dad.
Yeah, or dad is at least. Yeah, so that he really likes like thoughtful gifts. So, yeah, so that's one.
Yeah, yesterday was my parents' wedding anniversary. It's 37th wedding anniversary. I kind of forgot about it. My sister reminded me. And thank God for COVID times and DoorDash, where I sent flowers. I sent my dad's favorite ice cream, which is Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream. And then lately they've been trying to eat healthier, so I kind of balanced it out with like an acai bowl mix thing that I know they like. And, I couldn't personally deliver it to them, and it's a wedding anniversary. It's not like a huge like milestone that we always have to celebrate, but like any chance I get, I want to express like I'm thinking of you and I'm really sorry I forgot until like midday or it was kind of evening. But even then, like I jumped into like, oh, what can I do to just at least connect with them and tell them I love them, and yeah, that's the way they feel loved. And so I sent something to their door and they're like, first of all, they marvel at like DoorDash. My dad's like, wait, so they shop for you and they bring it to your door? So, someone rings the doorbell and they get these gifts. And my parents were just like effusively thanking me, even though it's so small. And honestly, as we get older, like they just want to know we're thinking of them in some ways. And they've accepted like, yeah, we're not there 24/7, but actually they just want to know that you think of them. So in that sense, I think, yeah, what you're saying, like timely words of appreciation and gratitude, like that's really important.
Yeah. Another thing that comes to mind is just kind of making most of the time when you're with them. So like, so if you do visit them, even if it's like once or twice a year, I think quality time, a lot of people receive love through that. And, so we've tried to think of different meaningful activities to do. Like one year, like my sister came up with this like, Thanksgiving jar with like pretty fairy lights in a mason jar, and like we all wrote down like, things we're grateful for, and kind of activity like that we've never done with our family before. It felt slightly risky because we didn't know how they were going to respond, but they like thought it was cute, and actually like the kind of the sharing time, quote unquote, that we had kind of through it was kind of nice. Yeah. And then last year I remember I bought all of our staff these cards. It's called Parents Are Human. So you can check it out at parentsarehuman.com. But it's actually meant for like people who are from second generation. If you're second generation, your parents are immigrants and maybe they don't speak English. So the card has like different like relationship building questions or get to know each other questions with English on one side and then the language on the other. Yeah. And so that's been one way that people can kind of start up different levels of conversation with their family. And I think with quality time, maybe it's something like regularly calling. I think just it's the whole point about what you said about like making sure they know that we're thinking of them. So I think, we try to like call, at a regular pace every week. And for us, our parents don't really want to see us. They say it's our
They
kids.
want to see our kids.
Yeah. So making sure that we call when the kids are awake and, make the kids basically have a conversation with the grandparents. I think that's one way we show them love. And then for me, whenever I'm at their house, I try to like be helpful. Like I try to help them with any paperwork or fix things around the house. Like this last visit that we did, I replaced the kitchen faucet, both at my parents' place, and then I think the previous visit I did at my in-laws' place as well. And so, and so it's a lot of this. I fixed their dishwasher too, I think. So I think different things I've picked up over the years. A lot of it through church, actually, through doing different projects for church. From Midwest Lodge work, even that's been really useful because then I can take some of those skills and help my parents, around the house.
And they're just so thankful.
Yeah, it saves them like thousands of dollars from having to hire someone. So, and then I think if your parents are not Christian, especially, I think trying to find ways to just be open about your faith. I'm not necessarily talking about preaching the gospel to them directly, especially if they're not at a place where they're ready to receive that. But like at least being open about your faith and sharing, or kind of sharing from your perspective, like how you see things maybe differently, or and then all the acts of love that we've already been discussing. I think that will kind of open their hearts over the years so that you can love them in kind of the ultimate act of love, right? Which would be to share the gospel with them if they're not believers. So that's something that, maybe right now, depending on where you are with your parents, maybe you can't have that conversation yet, but you can at least start praying for your parents. So I think that's one way to love them.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back to like what are ways to love your family when you live far from them. Yeah, I like when you are back home, I think it starts with some basics like don't act like your teenage self.
Yeah, that's true. Those are basics. Yeah.
The basics of like don't be a slob.
Yeah.
And like act like an adult because you are different. Not just because you're an adult and not a 16-year-old that used to live in their house, but also you are a Christian who, whatever you do or don't do, it is a witness to your parents, whether they're Christian or not either. And so I think some of the things that my parents like commented over the years was like, oh, wow, you're cooking the dinners for us? Like, when did that happen? And then, just like going and cleaning their house whenever I'm there, or like trying to fix stuff, or like just doing the laundry without being asked to, like.
But it might even be even more basic, like even getting up on time,
or just get up at a godly hour.
Yeah, like show up to the dinner time, like instead of like staying in your room and doing your own thing, like actually ask them questions about their lives.
Yeah.
Like I think there's so many ways you can start.
Be present, be interested.
Yeah, and it just sort of depends on where you are at right now.
Yeah.
But I think once like taking some step forward, right, to improve your relationship or to show your love to your family, I think that's really good.
Because your family will feel loved. Well, their fears for you and their worries for you as parents, especially, will be assuaged as you show signs of maturity more and more, as you get older. And maybe that just starts with like getting out of bed and making your bed. So yeah, I'd start there. All
right. So maybe just one last really simple question. Okay. I see one here that hopefully is easy to answer. So what books are you reading lately? What books are you reading lately?
I'm doing a lot more audiobooks lately because I just do it when I'm driving and washing dishes, folding laundry, cleaning the kids' room. I am listening to The Brothers Karamazov right now. It's pretty fascinating. I've never read it before. It was always on my, to read list, and I never got around to it, but I've gotten into it. I actually don't know how much I have left because it's not a physical book, but it's really like insightful into humanity. And that's kind of the books I like. When I'm really, really tired while driving, and that's just not going to cut it because I have to really focus on what it's saying, I go back to Harry Potter because it's very entertaining.
We're both huge fans of Harry Potter. Yeah. So, one book I started on recently, which I've really enjoyed. So it's a page turner. Like it's a 400-page book. I think I read 100 pages in my first sitting. So it's called Once You See: The 7 Temptations of the Western Church, and it's written in novel format, so it's super fascinating. But it's Jeff Christopherson, who our church has a relationship with. He leads the church planting network in Canada. But he basically is talking about 7 basically errors or kind of 7 temptations that the Western church has been falling prey to. And kind of, I think it's a call for the Western church to come back to orthodoxy, not just in belief, but in like how we live out church. And some of the errors that we've been making in that. And so far, man, it's been really convicting. And I feel excited to kind of finish the book and see what lessons there are for there. And then another book that I've started on, which a lot of people at our church have been reading, is Gospelize. Gospelize Your Ministry by Greg Stier. And it's basically just all about how we can become a gospel preaching congregation or gospel preaching ministry, not through like events, but through each person really owning that. And owning that mission. And so I think that's something that several of our staff have started on as well. And we're excited about what the stuff in there. And hopefully we can take some of the learnings and apply it in the coming year. All right. I think that's it.
All right.
That's it for today. So how do you feel after doing your first episode?
A little better.
A little better?
Yeah.
All right. That's great. Well, thanks for coming on, Kat.
Yep.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll do another AMA soon. So as per usual, so I've been, telling you guys about the bit.ly/dpod-AMA link. So whatever questions you submit there, we'll answer in this kind of format. So hopefully, if this triggered any more questions, you can go ahead and ask using the form in the show notes. Otherwise, have a nice day.
Bye-bye.